Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Cardano, a realistic price prediction, part 2. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Why are we doing part 2? Well, the time we did part 1, the value of Eta was going through the roof, and it had gone up 3 to 4x in a month or two. And I don't think people were necessarily able to think about the market in a rational way, because every single week the value of Eta was more or less going up. Now we can take a step back and look to see where are we now that the dust has settled some, and let's look towards realistic price predictions. It also doesn't hurt that that's been by far my most popular video, which again is why we're going to do part 2. So let's go ahead and jump in. So far the value of Eta has moved above $1, and we're consolidating just above it. Now, that doesn't mean that we will ultimately hold this above $1. Of course, we could see a correction. We know that Ethereum has experienced several corrections last market cycle, and actually many times when it did have a nice correction, it ultimately went down to its bull market support band, which you can see here. So we had several corrections down to this level. We didn't even always hold it. For instance, we corrected to it here and also over here, but we actually did fall below it briefly from October through January of 2016 and 2017. But the moral of the story here is that the 20-week moving average in a bull market, at least for Bitcoin, and we've seen it for Ethereum, has offered some level of support. For Eta, we don't really know yet. We can sort of see we've flirted with that level a little, bouncing off of it right here, and also flirting with these levels in this region. We do not yet know how much value the bull market support band, which again is just a combination of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, will provide for Eta this market cycle. If you're curious where it currently is, it's coming in at about 56 cents up to 68 cents. Okay, so even if Cardano were to have a correction down to those levels, it doesn't even mean that the bull market is over, right? I mean, that would be a 63% correction. And you may say, well, hold up a second, that doesn't make any sense. But again, if you look at Ethereum, we know that it had similar corrections last market cycle, and it did not stop it from continuing to move up. So we're not saying it's going to drop to those levels now, but I do think it'll drop to the 20-week moving average at some point this market cycle, but it will not represent the end of the market cycle, if that makes sense. So we go over here and look at Eta, and we say right now it's trading at 121. And to reiterate on a lot of different people calling for $50 Eta, $100 Eta, just ridiculous price predictions, as always, we need to take a step back and look at the market capitalization. Again, the market capitalization is simply the price times the supply. So remember, just because Eta is trading at 122 does not make it cheaper than Binance Coin. In fact, Binance Coin is cheaper than Eta because the market cap of Binance Coin right now is slightly less than that of Eta. Do not think of things in terms of how many you can get for $100 or $1,000. It's all about the percent moves. If you buy Eta at $1.22 and it goes up 10x and it goes up to say $12.20, right? Then it's a 10x. It's just simply a 10x. And if Binance Coin goes up 10x, it'll be close to $2,500. It doesn't mean that you would have seen any difference in their ROI, and it doesn't make it harder for Binance Coin to go to $2,500 than Eta to go to $10 or $12. You have to look at the market capitalization. So the market capitalization should govern what is theoretically possible. So we know right now that it's not theoretically possible, in my opinion, for Eta to go to a market capitalization of $1 trillion. Why is that? Well, it's because Bitcoin's market capitalization is coming in at approximately $1 trillion. I do not expect, I mean, this is not financial advice, I do not expect Eta to come anywhere close, ever, to Bitcoin's market capitalization, okay? So if Bitcoin is at 1 trillion and Eta is currently at 40 billion, then we know that there's not a great chance that Eta could go to this market capitalization. Now, the biggest caveat to this discussion is that we know that if we were to go back in time and look at, say, historical prices, okay, so if we were to go look at historical prices last, or say back in March or something, we can go over to our historical snapshots. And what we're gonna do is, and we'll show it here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this up and we're gonna go see what was Eta back on March 13th of 2020. And you can see that then Eta's market capitalization was only a measly 737 million. This is when this channel was saying this is the time to buy Eta. A lot of channels are saying buy Eta, but they waited until it went to 40 cents or 50 cents or something. So this channel, we were discussing it when it was at $737 million market capitalization, coming in at a mild 2 to 3 cents, right? But the thing that the reason this is interesting, because if you look at the market capitalization of Eta back then, it was 737 million. And so we would have said back then that it cannot immediately go to Bitcoin's current market capitalization, which was only approximately 101 billion. But today, we know that Eta's market capitalization is already 39 billion. I do think that Eta can go to a $100 billion market capitalization sometime later this cycle, but it's because Bitcoin's market cap has gone to 1 trillion. So Bitcoin should govern what is theoretically possible for Eta. I do not think Eta can go to, say, even half of Bitcoin's market capitalization, which would mean 500 billion. But if Bitcoin were to go to a market capitalization between, say, 2 to 4 trillion, which I think is where the top will be for this market cycle for Bitcoin, if it's able to go to 2 to 4 trillion, then can Eta go to a few hundred billion? Yes, I think it's theoretically possible because you have a lot of room to move up with Bitcoin, hopefully between 2 to 4 trillion. So I hope that makes sense. Now, what does that mean practically speaking for the price? Well, again, if the current market cap of Bitcoin is 1 trillion and Eta's is 40 billion, then we know that 40 billion times 25 would put us at a market capitalization of approximately 1 trillion. Therefore, 25 times 121 is basically going to be, just over $25, between $25 to $30. Therefore, that, to me, is theoretically impossible because I do not think that Eta can get to a $1 trillion market capitalization. Even if Bitcoin goes to 2 trillion, I don't think Eta can make it to 1 trillion, if that makes sense, okay? So I'm a huge Eta bull. We've been buying it. I've been buying it on this channel since 2 cents, 3 cents, up to 10 cents, later on at 30 cents. Okay, I'm a huge Eta bull. But let's be pragmatic. If you listen to the people that only tell you it's going to go up, you're gonna feel like a fool when the rug gets pulled out from underneath the market one day, and then those people, where are they gonna be, right? I mean, they're gonna tell you to buy the dip for the next 3 years, and then, to just wait. Okay, so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Therefore, you can always take profits along the way. Nothing wrong with it. Hodling, it's a meme. Ignore it. If you're up 60x, which, a lot of people are, there's nothing wrong with taking profits along the way, and we can still hope that it continues to go up, but it doesn't mean you can't systematically reduce your risk. It doesn't mean you can't reduce your exposure at key phases if you want to take some off the table and slightly diversify it. Remember, diversification preserves wealth, concentration grows it. So if you are concentrated in Eta for a long time, you've been able to grow your wealth. But, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Key phases, right? Whatever targets you have in mind, you could systematically take some of that risk off the table, diversify it. So you grow it, and then you diversify it. And then when you get to a more rational point in your mind, then you can start to concentrate it again, but maybe not the whole thing, right? You want to keep some and make sure you have a nice cushion because you don't want to bet the family farm on crypto. Okay, you just don't want to bet the family farm on crypto. So what does that mean? Well, where could that put Eta if it can't go to, say, 1 trillion, which I don't think it can go to, because I think that going to 1 trillion at this point in the cycle, I mean, Bitcoin is already up. It went down to 3,100 earlier this cycle. It's already up like 20x. Okay, so we can't continue to assume that Eta can reach Bitcoin's current market capitalization at every phase during the market cycle because there will be a major pullback at some point. So if we assume that it can't go to 1 trillion, well, where could it go? And could it go to $500 billion? Maybe, but I think if it goes to $500 billion, it would assume that Bitcoin's probably trading between 2 to 4 trillion, probably closer to the 4 trillion mark than the 2 trillion mark for Eta to go to a 500 billion market capitalization. Now, if Eta were to go up another 10x from here, where would that put it? Would it be theoretically possible given Bitcoin's current market capitalization? Well, a 10x move from here would actually put Eta at approximately 380 billion. 380 billion. So we take a look and we look at Bitcoin. We say Bitcoin's currently trading at 1 trillion. Is it possible for Eta to go to 380, let's say 400 billion this early? Probably not. I don't think Eta can go to $10 this early. Later this cycle, if Bitcoin's trading between 2 to 4 trillion market cap, sure. I think that it's theoretically possible for Eta to go to a market capitalization about 10x from here. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative, okay? I think a realistic target for Eta, in my opinion, for this market cycle will be somewhere between $5 to $10, okay? That's what I think. Doesn't mean it's going to make it to 5. Doesn't mean it has to stop at 10. It could come in less than 5, right? Maybe it peaks out at 4, or it could go to 15 potentially, right? I don't really know. Whatever the peak number is, rest assured it will probably only be that way for a very short period of time. So the idea that everyone will be able to sell at that level is just simply a myth, right? Most people will not be able to do that. But the journey to a $5 to $10 Eta, and you know, with some wiggle room, right? With some wiggle room. The journey to a $5 to $10 Eta, I don't think is going to be necessarily immediate. Doesn't mean we can't go to $2 in the next couple months or something, but I don't think the journey to a $5 to $10 Eta is going to be immediate. If you look at Ethereum, you know, a lot of people think of Ethereum as the poster, basically the token child for the last market cycle. But when you look at it, there were still phases where it more or less just moved sideways for a year. And then we had another one here that was half a year. So don't necessarily expect that Eta can go to $10 just like that, right? We're probably going to have long periods of consolidation. People like to ignore this when you look at prior bull markets for Bitcoin. We can look at Bitcoin and then we can look at Ethereum. People like to ignore the fact that there are long consolidation periods. But remember, Bitcoin governs the cycle, and even Bitcoin last market cycle had periods where it was more or less just moving sideways for half a year at a time, not really doing a whole lot. Okay, so expect that to happen. Does it mean it will happen? No, right? I'm just showing you what I think can happen. I'm showing you some different scenarios, but I don't want people to think that they're going to necessarily have a $10 Eta next week, because it's just not going to happen. But later this cycle, if Bitcoin's trading between a $2 to $4 trillion market capitalization, which would put it somewhere between $100 to $200 trillion, give or take, right? What's a few K among friends? Then yes, I do think that Eta could make a run for the $5 to $10 mark. However, whatever that peak value is, whether it's between that range or slightly below it or slightly over it, I don't think it will stay that way very long. Now, if you look at the Eta Ether valuation, we could somewhat use this to maybe govern what is theoretically possible in the short term. Okay, so if we take the measured move from the current valuation of Eta and go up, we can see that it has actually reached valuations against Ether approximately 90% higher than its current valuation. So if the valuation of Ether were to stay constant and Eta went up another 90%, you know, that would put it over the $2 mark. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that I do think a $2 Eta, while I don't know if it's going to happen in the short term, I would say that it's theoretically possible for a $2 Eta to happen in the short term, just based off what's happened before with its Ether valuation. If you look at the Bitcoin valuation of Eta, we can see that what is theoretically possible, what has happened before. Well, we know that it's been up to this level as late as April of 2018. From the current valuation of Eta, that would put it up another 81%. So this is why I'm saying that, you know, with a constant valuation of Bitcoin and Ethereum at these levels, a $2 Eta is theoretically in the cards. Does it mean it's going to happen? No, but it is a short-term target that could play out, and I don't think it breaks anything, right? I mean, we could go to a $2 Eta, then we could come back down to a $1 Eta, and then continue on, hopefully en route to a $5 to $10 Eta. But the point of this chart, the point of looking at the valuation against Ether and the valuation against Bitcoin, is to say, well, what's theoretically possible based on historical data? And by the way, when we talk about this, I mean, when we look back at this, it doesn't mean that, right? It doesn't mean that Eta can't eventually just continue to move up, right? All we're doing is saying, well, has it gone to this level before? Well, yes, it has. Therefore, if it's done it before, it can do it again. I said if there's market conditions, if a set of market conditions exists that allow the Eta valuation against Ether to go past this level, which it's peaked at for the last several times, these are the market conditions that would do it. I'll say the same thing here. If there exists a set of market conditions that would allow the Eta valuation to go to this level against Ether, these would be the market conditions, right? When we're in a bull market, when Bitcoin's in a bull market, and if Bitcoin stabilizes, bonus points for Eta, assuming Ethereum doesn't move first. If Eta does make a run at this title up here, then I would say it's going to get pretty hot at that time. And I might think that there's going to be a lot of people maybe taking valuation or profits from Eta back to Ethereum. Doesn't necessarily mean that the USD valuation of Eta is going to drop, but it probably would at some point around that level. It could just mean that people are taking profits over to Ethereum and then trying to ride that wave. Okay, a pragmatic point of view, but this I think does provide sort of a realistic price prediction for Cardano, for Eta. We talked about short-term implications based on prior valuations against Ethereum and Bitcoin. We talked about theoretical limits based on the market capitalization of Bitcoin. We talked about theoretical limits based on the future market capitalization of Bitcoin. We sort of covered a lot of things there. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to click the bell icon to turn on your alerts. Definitely subscribe. Let's go for 300,000 subscribers. Remember, we also have the premium list altcoin season sale. The price of that will be going up in 6 days. So if you want to lock in the lower rate and get access to the weekly reports and videos, the premium Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, the Into the Cryptoverse app, the premium only live streams, and more. We have even more coming this year. If you want to get access at the lower rate and lock in the lower rate, check out the link in the description below. You'll get access and you can stay at that level as long as you don't cancel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe and I will see you next time. Bye.